Greetings! I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I'm going to have a look at this set of aftermarket tracks for T-34 85s. These are made by Fruil, or Fruil? I'm not quite sure. This is a box of individual metal track links for a 1/35th scale model, and these are obviously designed to replace the less realistic vinyl tracks and the like that are frequently found in those kits. That's probably stating the obvious, isn't it? There's nothing on the back, except for a sticker saying that these are not suitable for children under 10 because of lead-bearing material, so maybe be careful with these tracks. Probably try not to ingest them. Let's have a look at what we get in the box. There are 2 bags full of track links. So many links. There's one bag for links with the guide horn and the other bag has the flat links with no guide horns. I understand that these will often be separate bags for left and right tracks, but on the T-34 they're symmetrical, so it doesn't really matter if you mix them up, they're all the same. There is also some wire from which the track pins are to be cut, and there's a little instruction leaflet. It's obviously not written in perfect English, but that's okay. It's understandable, and I find it kind of amusing and endearing. This link with the guide horn here is quite decent looking. There are holes for the link pins on one end, and the other end is solid. That's the end that will face out away from the tank. The detail is pretty good, and for the most part, the parts are very neatly moulded. There are a small number of burrs here and there, but they're very easily taken care of with a file. I would say they don't need to be perfect, after all this is a Soviet vehicle, but I do try to make them as neat as I can. The next step is to drill out the hole for the link pins. The holes are already there, but they're not perfect and I would expect the wire won't fit through most of them without drilling. For this you will need a 0.5mm drill bit. I had to go and buy a new set of drill bits for this because the smallest I had was 0.75, so if you're going to use track links like these you'll need an appropriate drill bit. When drilling holes in the links with the guide horns, be sure that you don't drill all the way through the solid end unless you want the tracks to look less good. That is to say, bad. I test to see if the wire goes through the holes I drilled, and it does. I then test fit the 2 track links together and it works great, so I might as well start assembling. I trim a piece of wire to form a pin that's a bit longer than the length I'll need, in this case 3/4 of an inch, because my cutting mat has squares in backwards measurements. That's roughly 20mm. Obviously it doesn't need to be perfect. I then slide the pin into the hole while holding the 2 pieces of track link together. Makes sense. Do be careful with this. The wire is very thin and if you apply too much pressure it'll stab right through your skin. I assume it didn't happen to me at all, no. To hold the pin in place, add a dab of superglue. I probably used a little bit too much in this example. And that's the process. Do this over and over and over again until you've got enough track link for your tank. The way I decided to do this was 10 links at a time, 5 links with horns and 5 without. The assembly is very basic as I just showed. I clean up and drill all 10 links I'll need and then join them together. I add glue after I've got a few connected, and then I add some more links, then some more glue, and so on until all 10 are on. It's super easy, just a little bit tedious. I would recommend you put on a good stream or video or music or something, otherwise you might go crazy. Once that row of 10 is done, make another, and so on. At this point my tracks are 40 links long, and they're very fun to play with, or I'm easily amused. Whichever. I'm doing the tracks this way so that I have 2 runs of tracks that are both the same length and I know what that length is. There are plenty of spare track links in this box, which I really do appreciate, but if you put them all on, there will be far too many links in your tracks, which is obviously going to look a little bit silly. I read that a T-34 85 should have somewhere between 72 and 76 links per side. That's all well and good, but the model might not be entirely accurate in regards to the number of track links that will fit and look right. So I stopped making tracks when I got to 70 links in each run. That way I shouldn't have too many. They look pretty good, except for that excess pin wire sticking out. It looks bad, but more importantly, it will also prevent the tracks from fitting onto the tank. So I clip them off. If you wanted to, you could do this as you go rather than at the end. It doesn't really make much of a difference. Now I have a pile of tiny little bits of brass wire. To avoid being wasteful, you could put these aside and maybe use them later as discarded bullet casings or something like that. Now it's time to test fit the tracks. You can see on my T-34-85, the build video for which there's a link in the description and in the card in the upper right corner now. On this tank I've left the drive sprocket so that it rotates, which makes it much easier to pull the tracks over it. These would go on super easy, except the space above the idler wheels at the front is a little bit tight. I used tweezers and some force to pull the tracks through, though I didn't film it because I'm a bad. You can see here that I might be able to force the track links together like this, but the track tension would be super high and it just wouldn't look right, so I need to add 2 more track links. By this time I've had plenty of practice in adding them, so it's no issue. I then add the final track pin. I leave this one significantly longer than the rest of them, so that I can bend it over and have it easily removable. It is a bit of a pain to force the tracks past the front guards, but I still want to be able to take them off for painting. But for now, they can stay on the tank. I think these tracks look really good and add quite a lot of realism to the model. They are very easy to put together, though maybe a little bit tedious. That said, I do think they are worth that tedium. Especially for tanks that should have a lot of slack in their tracks, like a lot of Soviet vehicles. The main downside is their cost. They are certainly not cheap. There are of course other kinds of individual track links that you can get, and they might cost a little bit less, but that's not what this video is about. However, if you do have any experiences or suggestions for other kinds of aftermarket tracks, feel free to share them in the comment section below. Also, feel free to subscribe to me here on YouTube, follow me on social media, and watch me live stream on Twitch. And if you really like the things I do, please consider helping to support the channel over at Patreon. Links to all of those are in the description below. As always, I shall return soon, so until then, happy modelling and thanks for watching. Farewell.